is always safer in the hands of the people than in the conference rooms of any elite.
Sam Seder.
They are unanimous in their hate for me, and I welcome their hatred.
We must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex.
The Majority Report with Sam Seder.
Ever get the feeling you've been cheated?
It is Thursday, November 17th, 2022. My name is Emma Figland, in for Sam Seder, and this is the 5-time award-winning Majority Report. We are broadcasting live steps from the industrially ravaged Gowanus Canal in the heartland of America, downtown Brooklyn, USA. On the program today, Leslie Kern, author of Gentrification is Inevitable and Other Lies. And later in the show, Jacob Silverman, who's been on a lot recently. We like him. Crypto expert and co-author of the upcoming book Easy Money with Ben McKenzie, will join us to talk about the FTX collapse. That's going to be fun. Meanwhile, Republicans officially have control of the House. They got to 218 seats with Mike Garcia's win in California, but that majority is still going to be razor thin. Big agenda items for that new majority: investigations into what, you ask? Withdrawing from Afghanistan, Hunter Biden, like just in general, the pandemic. Maybe it's a plandemic. They're going to investigate that. Hard-hitting stuff here. Pelosi will meet with her caucus shortly to discuss her future plans. In 2018, she said that she was only going to serve 4 more years as the party's leader, and now they're in the minority for the first time in 4 years, so let's hope progressives have someone to run against Hakeem Jeffries.
Who's bad?
Yes. And Mitch McConnell easily crushed a pathetic attempt by Rick Scott to challenge him for a leadership role. Rick Scott's the head of the National Republican Senatorial Committee, and Republicans didn't take the Senate, so he was like, now's my time to strike.
Time for promotion.
12 Republican senators joined all 50 Democrats to break a filibuster on same-sex marriage, the major hurdle to actually codifying it into law. That's good. The House also passed a bill limiting the use of NDAs in sexual harassment cases across the country. It passed the Senate unanimously previously, so now Biden will sign it. They also got to do that for, like, non-competes, which is used to undercut labor. Speaking of the labor movement, workers at more than 100 Starbucks stores are on strike today. Solidarity with them.
Yeah, find out if one's in your area and go support them.
Karen Bass has defeated the more aggressively pro-cop billionaire real estate developer Rick Caruso in the race for LA mayor. That is a relief. She'll be the first female mayor of the city. In Pennsylvania, state Republican senators have voted to impeach Philly DA Larry Krasner for crime existing. The Cherokee Nation of Oklahoma is one step closer to having a delegate in Congress, a promise that was made to them in a treaty signed in 1835. Really, really long delay on that promise. And lastly, in Iran, another night of violent crackdowns on protesters. Police opened fire in a metro station in Tehran. At least 300 have been killed by security forces over the last 2 months. All this and more on today's Majority Report. Welcome to the show, everybody. It's an Majority Report Thursday.
Welcome back.
I know. I mean, it was all a blur. Moving is terrible. I've been complaining about it constantly, so I'm sure everyone's sick of it, but the worst part of it is over. I'm just in like a sea of boxes at this point, and I'm sure it'll take me 6 weeks to actually unpack them fully. I like to slow walk it.
Yeah, live out of the boxes.
Right, just be constantly agitated about it, but not actually take actionable steps to make my living environment easier for myself. That's kind of my MO. Did I miss anything? I mean, Trump officially announced. I heard the speech was low energy. Heard a bit of it.
Yeah, I mean, it was low energy, but like we mentioned, he's not.
McGaga.
He's got his guys, like the base. He just needs to show the like McConnell's and the Lindsey Grahams that he can do it.
Be presidential.
He can
In the
moderate
donor
himself.
class.
Yes, I'm actually.
That's not going to do that.
No, I know he's insane to think that, but that's what he's going for. I
And
think.
now, like the donor class whisperers, the couple that like most people thought was sane in his team, they've bowed out. Jared and Ivanka no longer. So
Well, look, good thing I have another daughter, and I'm gonna think of her name in just a second.
yeah, it starts with a T. I
Hold on.
remember
She got
walking
married
with her.
very recently. I don't think I
Yeah.
went.
I dipped out at the
I think I
vow
rain
portion. Yeah.
I think it was Trumplania or something. I can't remember.
If they ever did have another kid, it would be something like that. Like, yeah, they're like almost they're Targaryen in nature. Like the kids have to be Ivanka and Ivana and Don Jr. Something. Those are the people who are
Eric.
barren just because we're rich. Anyway, but let's talk about a little bit like something different than the midterms because I feel like we've that's been dominating the discourse. And this ProPublica uncovered this audio here that I think is important for people to hear because abortion, according to exit polls, #1 issue for a lot of voters in this country. And Democrats need to take this opportunity to, and yes, they've lost the House. We understand this, but use this in their state legislature victories, use this in their future elections as a way to turn out voters, but also act. State legislatures have to make sure that they're active in codifying abortion rights. Because when you hear this kind of audio, and this is a call between Tennessee state legislators and anti-choice lobbyists, including someone named Will Brewer, who's the legal counsel for an organization called Tennessee Right to Life, you just hear the urgency that they act with in taking away people's right to choose what they want to do with their own bodies, people who can get pregnant.
This is people conspiring against your rights.
Right. And you know, I've said this many times before, but I like to repeat it because it encapsulates so much of this, you know, moment in our history in regards to the Republican Party is that they are a minoritarian theocratic party, and they understand that. They understand that they're not operating with like the will of the people behind their backs, and so they act with the respective urgency that you would expect of that. And that means cutting corners, breaking rules, not caring about norms and people's feelings and polling numbers, and that makes them a formidable opponent because they're you know, going no holds barred. So here's some of this audio that ProPublica was able to obtain.
I want to emphasize that now is the time to continue to play offense. We were handed a victory by the Supreme Court, and this state was ready because we've been playing offense for so long, and we put ourselves in a position to be in control of this issue preemptively. And so we need to continue to play offense.
We need to continue to play offense. There was another like part of that audio in that thread. Maybe if you can scroll down, Bradley, you can the part about IVF. I don't know why they broke this up into so many pieces, but this part here is one of the people speaking in this call, telling lawmakers that next up is the regulation of potentially IVF and contraception.
Yeah.
But that they don't want to have that conversation right now. So this is just, again, instructive about how they operate.
And this is, I'll also just say, contrast with how the Democrats pursue their goals. This is how you actually get things done, is you have to be on the offense and go for them. You can't maintain.
Yeah.
And so this is Stephen Billy, the Vice President of State Affairs for the Susan B. Anthony Pro-Life America Foundation.
Okay, gotcha.
And maybe your caucus gets to a point next year, 2 years from now, 3 years from now, where you do want to talk about IVF and how to regulate it in a more ethical way or deal with some of the contraceptive issues. But I don't think that that's the conversation that you need to have now. I would not recommend having it now in the context of your current pro-life law. And maybe your caucus gets to a point.
Okay, that was it. Yeah, and so, I mean, then there's other parts of this call where they say, you know, try to connect abortion to breast cancer risk and other health risks, right? You know, is it going to, which is obviously...
Which is what they're trying to do with puberty blockers and trans kids now.
Yeah, fear-mongering about potential other health ramifications. Yeah, let's listen to that part, too. Another lobbyist speaking here.
I encourage you to be able to hide behind the skirts of women who actually then bring their voices forward, challenge the other side to demonstrate that abortion actually benefits women. I encourage you to be able to.
I mean, I encourage you to hide behind the skirts of women. Usually that phrase is used as a pejorative. It's usually used as a way to, you know, say maybe don't do that kind of thing. But they're saying, no,
that's like low dignity.
Yeah, please engage in this.
As opposed to like a great strategy.
Yeah, right. But frankly, I mean, this is the problem with leaving this kind of vacuum. It's not enough just to have a population of like 65 to 70% of people, whatever poll you look at, who support abortion rights. That's not enough. You have to take actions. And you have to combat their urgency with urgency on your end, because that's what they're doing, right? They're saying it right there. We want to come after IVF, treatments for fertility, for people who are unable to naturally maybe conceive, or not naturally, but need help conceiving, and other purposes, of course. But like when you're going after IVF and contraception, what that means is that we want to eliminate procedures that have women have and people who can get pregnant have having more agency over their own health care, and two, any process by which pregnancy comes in a way that's unnatural in God's law. If you're doing IVF, aren't you playing God? If you have fertility issues and you're trying to go to your doctor and try to get pregnant, I feel still like there's not a full understanding of the warped mentality, and not just the mentality, but the call to action that these people are operating with. And this is happening in state legislatures across the country. We took a big step forward in these recent months and in these midterms with Kansas, with Vermont codifying abortion, with Kentucky and the ballot measures there, and other states across the country. We did take steps forward, but this is an ongoing process.
I mean, these freaks are going after the pill, right?
Yeah.
Like that they and you can tell, like, the way he says, like, hide behind the skirts and challenge them to show that this is actually beneficial to women. The idea that they want to go back to a time before women could have contraception.
Yeah. Because if the man decides it's time for me to impregnate you,
bring that back.
That's time. And that's why, again, rape and incest exemptions are such like crap. They're unenforceable for one, but two, there's a reason that rape is not a crime that's proven often with police work. It's because, one, it's a crime where there's two people involved, but two, like, these theocrats and these conservatives in these areas of the country, they're like not that concerned about rape either, because what they see is sex from the male perspective and impregnation from being something that the man chooses and decides, and that's why they're going after something like IVF or contraception.
Yeah, I mean, I was watching a documentary on the Falwell Jr.
I know, I wrote that down. I wanted to watch that when you said,
and
yeah, it was
there's
good.
a ProPublica article, The Liberty Way, how Liberty University discourages and dismisses students' reports of sexual assaults. I mean, it's a microcosm of the world that these freaks want to create.
Yep. All right, folks, we're going to take a break soon, but we have some words from our sponsors today. A few of them today. So, There are many people in your life that might make your life easier. Somebody, say, if you have kids, if you're able to have a nanny, somebody just helps you around the house, that kind of thing. We can also be grateful for those who make our work lives easier here. That's why it's so important to have the right people on your team. And if you want to hire these people for your business, you need ZipRecruiter. And now you can try it free at ziprecruiter.com/majority. What's there to appreciate about ZipRecruiter? It uses powerful technology to find and match the right candidates up with your job. You can easily review these recommended candidates and invite your top choices to apply. Additionally, you'll love ZipRecruiter's complete suite of tools because they make it so easy to filter, review, and rate your candidates. Plus, 4 out of 5 employees who post on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. Sam has told this story before, but ZipRecruiter was instrumental in us hiring Brendan, who still works with us, books these great guests that helps Bradley book these great guests that you'll hear from today. And that's all possible because Sam was able to use ZipRecruiter. So if you want a stress-free hiring process, trust me, you'll be so thankful you tried ZipRecruiter. Just use our special URL to try it for free. ZipRecruiter.com/majority. Once again, that's ZipRecruiter.com/MAJORITY majority. ZipRecruiter, the smartest way to hire. And here's a number, 2000. Here's another number, 2008. Here's another number, 2022. When it comes to the economy, those are some scary years. .com crash, housing crash, the roller coaster we're going through right now. One thing is certain, it's a dangerous time not to know your numbers. But over 31,000 businesses have the confidence and clarity that they need because they rely on NetSuite by Oracle, the #1 cloud financial system. Now, NetSuite gives you the visibility and control of your financials, inventory, HR, planning, and budgeting so you can manage risk, get reliable forecasts, and improve margins. Everything you need all in one place. This is the kind of stuff that I need to be doing because we're with ESPN, got to keep stuff in one place. So left reckoning, majority report, we got to,
check your numbers.
Synergize. So everything you need all in one place. So how do you prepare for uncertain times? The answer is NetSuite. NetSuite can help you identify rising costs, automate your business processes, and easily see where to save money. That's why 93% of customers say they improve their visibility and control when they upgraded to NetSuite. What are you waiting for? I mean, look, I'm terrible with numbers and math and accounting. It's just, I see it and my mind goes blank and I just want to disengage and sit on the couch and do nothing. NetSuite makes that process a lot easier because it helps you do it for you. Right now, NetSuite is offering a one-of-a-kind special financing program. Head to netsuite.com/majority, MAJORITY, right now. netsuite.com/majority, netsuite.com/majority. That's NetSuite, SUITE, netsuite.com/majority. And lastly, do you run a business? Supercharge your knowledge, your sales, and your success with Shopify, the all-in-one commerce platform to start, run, and grow your business. We use that here for our merch at the Majority Report, and it's been incredibly helpful. Shopify gives entrepreneurs the resources once reserved for big business, so upstarts, startups, and established businesses alike can sell everywhere, synchronize online and in-person sales, and effortlessly stay informed. Shopify powers millions of businesses from first scale to full scale. You can reach customers online and across social networks with an ever-growing suite of channel integrations and apps, including Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Pinterest, and more. Plus, gain insights as you grow with detailed reporting of conversion rates, profit margins, and beyond. More than the store, Shopify grows with you. This is possibility powered by Shopify. Go to shopify.com/majority, all lowercase, for a free 14-day trial and get full access to Shopify's entire suite of features. Grow your business with Shopify today. Go to shopify.com/majority, MAJORITY right now. Shopify, SHOPIFY.com/majority. All right, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we will be joined by Leslie Kern. We are back, and we are joined now by Leslie Kern, professor of geography and environment at Mount Allison University in Canada, author of Gentrification is Inevitable and Other Lies. Leslie, thanks so much for coming on the show today.
Thanks for inviting me. Happy to be here.
Of course. So, your book details myths and lies about gentrification. And for our audience, what would be the biggest overall kind of big picture umbrella lie that you'd want them to come away with from listening to this interview?
Well, I think the clue is in the title, which is the idea that gentrification is inevitable, unstoppable, a kind of built-in feature of urban life. What I want people to come away with at the end of the book is the understanding that while gentrification is a powerful force and it's difficult to stop or even slow down, there are things that communities all over the world are doing and have done to take back some control of their environments and to push back against the forces of gentrification.
When you talk about that, I mean, what I'm reminded of, and we talk about this a lot on this program, is how conservatives naturalize injustice. And it's just, when gentrification is treated as a process that is inevitable, as you say, it makes it just seem like, oh, you know, tides go in, tides go out. You can't explain it, right? That there's no forces behind it. But we know, in particularly urban spaces, of course, real estate developers are driving that, as well as business owners. It's capital. So, I mean, what are some of those major forces that you studied for your book that are making this not a natural process, but one that is obviously actively being fostered?
Yes, it's so true that there is an active process behind it. There are actual decision makers. There are actors who both facilitate the spread of gentrification and who actively pursue it and encourage it. I think in many cases we can look to local government and even higher levels of government for smoothing the spread of gentrification, if you will, clearing the path by removing any sorts of regulations that would slow it down. That might include things like rent stabilization or anti-eviction measures or control over the kinds of development and what developers need to kind of give back to the city in order to build their projects. So the city is, I think, an active agent in that way. And today, you know, in the 2020s, the powerful forces that are propelling gentrification include large multinational corporations that see housing stock as an investment, as an asset class, and that are literally banking on the value of urban real estate increasing, oftentimes in a quick time frame, and so they are kind of actively pushing forward the kinds of changes to the urban environment that they believe will propel that price increase.
You touch on this, and I think it's just so key to understanding. And we had an interview recently about San Francisco, in particular on this front, but how developers are trying to change the role of urban spaces to a degree, not just, you know, changing the complexion raising rental prices for, for landlords doing so, or big, real estate interests, but also about creating urban spaces that are not just only livable for wealthier people, but that are playgrounds for people coming from outside the city. Can you talk about that dynamic?
Sure. So, one aspect of gentrification is a tourist-related gentrification, where the reality is that you can kind of charge tourists more to rent or to stay in a space than you can charge long-term residents. So we've seen kind of what some call the Airbnb-ification of cities, where a great deal of these once regular housing stock or long-term rental housing stock is being given over to short-term rentals, where the profit off of those goes sometimes to individual homeowners, but more often now we're seeing to kind of groups of investors and to corporations, essentially, that are buying up property and renting it out in this way. We could also think about those the playground for capital, if you will, where wealthy investors or speculators who may never set foot in the city own urban real estate, own residential spaces that sit empty. And this, I think, to many activists and to local residents, is a real slap in the face when people are struggling to find housing, and knowing that apartments are sitting empty and just accruing value for people who will literally never visit or live in them is just so shameful, I think, for us to witness.
Can you explain how that is unique to certain countries? Because there are protections against these kinds of things in other areas of the world.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And some countries, including Canada, or certain cities in Canada where I live, have been kind of playing catch up and trying to apply different forms of taxation and limitations to disincentivize that kind of foreign ownership. But I think one of the places where we hear about that a lot is in the city of London, where both the kind of the image of London and its reality as a global financial center mean that there's a great there's a cachet as well as a literal economic value to owning property in that city. And so many wealthy international investors own property there, again, with the sole purpose of letting it accumulate value and kind of being able to say, oh, I have a London home, even though it's not really a home in the way that you and I would think about a home.
Right. Well, they become, I guess, places where people can almost store their wealth. We also had an interview about this a few months ago.
Yes.
This is kind of a bigger picture question. Is gentrification an inevitable condition, or is it? I know it's not inevitable, as you say, but if the conditions of inequality are in existence, does that make gentrification inevitable? Do you know what I'm saying?
I think so. The way that I'm interpreting your question is this idea that if there are different kind of pockets, if you will, in an urban landscape where some areas have been disinvested and undervalued over time, then within a capitalist system, within a capitalist land market, I think gentrification is quite likely, right? In that you want to buy low and sell high. So some of those areas that were once seen as less desirable or kind of lower income, low priced, become attractive for capital because there's the potential for that, relatively low level investment to rise in value over time. And it's the nature of capitalism that it always has to seek greater and greater profit margins. So in that context of that landscape of inequality, yes, the kind of the pull of capital into certain areas is very strong.
Can you trace the history of kind of the concept of gentrification, like in the United States in particular? I feel like in the 60s, you see this transition, this process beginning to happen, people leaving the cities, white flight, suburban centers and sprawl kind of becoming an ideal, and there being an active disinvestment in the cities as well. So just historically, when you were looking at gentrification as a concept, where did it start, and how did it kind of evolve over time?
The term itself was coined in 1964 in London by a sociologist, but of course the process had already been underway in different places for some time. And it was referring in that moment to what seemed like, given everything that you've just described, a very counterintuitive movement of middle class, often white, house buyers into working class urban neighborhoods. And this seemed to go against everything that all of those trends that you just laid out. So the conversation at that point was very much around what was the kind of the cultural driver of this? What was attracting certain families, certain individuals to these areas? Now, I think it's clear that price was probably a factor, but there was also a kind of a countercultural movement, right, where some people wanted to reject the norms of suburbanization and kind of a conservative ideology and to do something different. Those who were living what would have been called alternative lifestyles at the time, whether they were single, whether they were part of the LGBTQ plus community, whether they were single parents, found more acceptance and a greater diversity in urban communities than they were finding in those white flight suburbs. So I think that cultural story is an important one to tell. It's not the whole story, but it certainly seems to have been a key part of the picture, particularly in those early years.
And then as maybe if you could take us even into like the 80s and the 90s and how the monster evolved.
The way that is described in the literature is kind of like a wave model that we in the early years had these, kind of a bohemian countercultural kind of left-wing artsy movement of people back into the city. But as the neighborhoods that they inhabited became a little more middle class, a little more palatable, if you will, to more mainstream families and households. There was the second wave is a kind of middle class household wave that starts to see these areas as a good investment and as having many of the amenities that they desire, whether those are, good schools, a nice green space, good access to public transportation, those sorts of things. And then the third wave, as we move kind of into the 90s and through to the present day, is this increasing involvement of those more powerful forces that we talked about at the beginning, the state kind of facilitating gentrification by removing or limiting regulatory controls, and the private development, finance, and real estate sectors getting very actively involved in new construction of homes in neighborhoods and tearing down public housing for market rate housing and all sorts of other investment strategies that have kind of capitalized on gentrification. Some call this an era of super gentrification, where it's like gentrification on top of gentrification.
Super gentrification. That is. I mean, like, if that's super gentrification, then where are we at in 2022?
Yeah, I mean, it's this era where we see almost a real multiplicity of forms of gentrification. We've talked about like a tourism gentrification. We've talked about this kind of foreign speculation as a form of gentrification. We have a wide variety of forms that are, to my mind anyways, and as I argue in the book, ways of extracting value and wealth from urban neighborhoods, and often in the process taking them away from or displacing the people who were the ones who kind of made them what they were in the first place, but who are now not so able to enjoy, if you will, the fruits of their community labors over time.
Right. Well, Leslie Kern, I can't thank you enough. I really appreciate your time today. The book is called Gentrification is Inevitable and Other Lies. You can check that out. And thank you so much, Leslie. Really appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thank you.
All right, guys, we are going to head to a break in a second, but we do have some like pretty big news that I just want to make sure is told before we get to Jacob Silverman. Nancy Pelosi is stepping down from leadership. We will get to some sound
and
about
it looks
that
like she's
later,
clearing the way
but...
for Jeffries.
Yes,
which is bad, and he's going to be an enemy.
That is bad.
And the thing is like, I just want to point out like what other people that follow New York politics is like. It proves that we're not going to learn anything from the underperformance of say New York, because Jeffries is exactly the sort of like buy into the right wing concern trolling about all these different things and attack the left kind of guy. So
yes, he is in the
turn your mic on. Yeah. I mean he was at the leading the charge, essentially saying defund the police was costing the Democrats. Go on, Bradley.
Yeah, sorry, just to say he's like very much in the Jay Jacobs mold, the state Democratic Party chair, where it's like the concerted effort in a lot of ways in the state level seems to not be against Republicans or against conservatives. It's to essentially beat the left.
Yeah.
To beat the left and have moral and political victories over the left and over DSA.
These are reactionary Democrats, and it says a lot about Pelosi. I think that she would that there's no question that she's going to put it in the hands of another guy who's just been sort of like groomed by the reactionary donor class to attack the left.
I mean, I just like he is Joe Crowley-esque. Yeah. He is younger. But you know, he is a person of color, but he is Joe Crowley-esque in terms of the machine that has created him and the kind of party that he wants to create.
And he's part of the Brooklyn machine, which honestly, it's hard to pick because the Bronx machine is right. Also pretty repellent. The Queens machine isn't that much better, but to say nothing of the Manhattan machine, but the Brooklyn machine is one of the most rank corrupt establishments in anywhere in the entire country, and he is a creature of that. And so that's partially what we have to look forward to. And also, frankly, he's young by their standards. He's 52. He's
I know.
Spring chicken, 52 years old, first time in House leadership.
Exactly. But we've been saying this for months and months, if not years, that the Progressive Caucus needs to be kind of coalescing behind someone. I believe that Sam and I both kind of asked Ilhan Omar this question, Representative Omar, a few times. She was hinting that the Progressives did want a challenge to Hakeem Jeffries. We just don't know who that is going to be. I can't see Jayapal after kind of a rocky few months making that leap. So got to be somebody. But seems
I mean, Katie Porter, I feel like would
be. I mean, Purple District just won
re-election campaign.
Right. But it does seem they really want like another safe blue seat where there's a big pool of donors. That's what they want.
Absolutely.
Pelosi in San Francisco.
And a guy who's friendly with them.
Hakeem Jeffries in New York. Appeals to those people. Lots of them at his disposal.
And hates the left.
That too.
Like that's
reliable, and you know what that means.
That's a feature and not a bug. Like he takes great pleasure in it, like Maloney did, and look where that got him.
Well, Nancy Pelosi will remain a member of the House, she says, just not in leadership anymore, meaning
retire.
She's going to retire soon. Yeah. If not, in the middle of her term at the end of this next 2-year term in 2024. So with that said, we're going to take a quick break and get to Jacob Silverman. We are back, and we are joined once again by friend of the show, Jacob Silverman, author of the upcoming book Easy Money, Cryptocurrency, Casino Capitalism, and the Golden Age of Fraud. Jacob comes on to rip on these crypto grifters on occasion and more. Jacob, thanks for being here.
Oh, it's a pleasure. Thank you.
So this has been an absolute saga, the collapse of FTX. Miami Heat recently sold the naming rights to their arena. They're ripping off the letters because they're unable to pay for their sponsorship. And according to what I've read, it seems like Sam Bankman-Fried, the head of this cryptocurrency exchange, has lost billions of dollars in a matter of days, and it is in ruins financially. Although when you become rich, even if you go bankrupt, they always end up finding a way to get rich again or stay rich. But I guess let's just start at the beginning of this saga. Who is this guy, Sam Bankman-Fried, and how did he and FTX jump on the scene?
Sure. Well, Sam Bankman-Fried, or SBF as you sometimes hear him called, he started as a quantitative trader, a quant at Jane Street. He went to MIT. He is the son of a couple Stanford law professors. So he did pretty well as an early 20s trader at Jane Street. Then he went on from there to eventually found this big crypto empire that became FTX and Alameda were the two main companies. The first sort of origin story that you hear, at least, is that Sam found an arbitrage opportunity where basically he was buying crypto cheaper on American exchanges and selling it on Asian exchanges. It was called the kimchi discount. And some people even dispute that story, but allegedly that's how he made some millions to start. And then, that matured into a full-fledged crypto hedge fund called Alameda, and then FTX, which was an exchange, just like Coinbase or Binance or some of these other exchanges. Like a lot of these exchanges, Coinbase is in the U.S., but Binance and FTX were based overseas. There was a small U.S. version of FTX where you could trade stuff, but there were a lot more options and a lot more sort of leverage and risk offered on FTX global, you might call it. So that's where people really went to bet on the prices of cryptocurrencies. And that's what turned Sam into a billionaire, at least on paper. And, like most crypto empires, this was all built in just the last few years. And Sam became a major Democratic donor, as people seem to be well aware now. I think one thing we could talk about, or at least deserves pointing out, is that one of his right-hand guys, Ryan Salame, was basically an equal donor to the Republicans. So they really had both sides of the aisle covered. But I think in a lot of ways, Sam became sort of the safe bet for crypto. A lot of institutional investors liked him. Bill Clinton and Tony Blair would come to his conferences, whatever you think of those guys. But, like so-called mainstream serious people who may think that crypto is a little murky or dangerous, they thought that Sam was this sort of cherubic 30-year-old, he's 30 now, would be a safe bet and someone that they could trust. And, it has a lot of Theranos residences. I would say that, like Elizabeth Holmes, Sam was this young, kind of quirky, brainy guy who convinced a lot of rich people who didn't really understand his technology that he had the secret sauce. And that was kind of all that was needed. And off of that, he raised billions. And I mean, we can go into what went wrong, but that's really the origin of Sam. And he went down to the Bahamas and set up shop there. He had companies all over the world, but mostly he was living with a very tight group of people, friends from college and from his previous job at Jane Street. And they were running these companies into the ground, it turns out.
Yeah, so can you... one, I'm curious who's going to play him in the inevitable miniseries on it. But two, I am curious what distinguished FTX from those other exchanges like Coinbase, because from my reading of it, it's like, oh, okay, they make money on the fees from the transactions, but you're saying that that FTX allowed for riskier kind of bets and gambles on the prices of currency. So was that distinct from the other exchanges?
In some ways, Binance offers some pretty similar possibilities. There are other exchanges that are overseas, but in the U.S., for example, the main big regulated exchange is Coinbase, and there are much more limited options about what you can buy and sell there. It's mostly about buying and selling tokens. On these overseas exchanges, what you can do is you can buy derivatives and futures and bet against the price movement of crypto, which is super volatile. And the other thing they allow you is leverage. So basically borrowing free money sometimes up to 100x. And Binance used to do this too, though they cut down the amount of leverage. Actually, a lot of the industry did over a year ago, basically cut down the amount of leverage, the amount of free money you could borrow. So the issue here is when you're gambling on these overseas exchanges that have much looser rules about leverage, about what kinds of financial products they even offer, it's no longer just about buying and selling tokens. It's really about making these bets or making these complex trades that are almost akin to stuff on Wall Street. And when things go wrong, they go really wrong. And when you have leverage, you might double your money with just a little bit of price movement. But if the price moves just a little bit down, you're wiped out. So FTX became notorious as this sort of place where people could bet big, but a lot of people were also wiped out. And in general, across the industry, you have exchanges sometimes making monies off of trading fees, but it's kind of a mixed model. Some work with institutional investors, like Coinbase does a lot. A lot of the everyday traders have left Coinbase. They're kind of conflicting or overlapping business models. But in general, you want the most people on your platform. So if you provide FTX based out of the Bahamas, it's pretty loose in rules. You can be really aggressive if you want. That's a lot more appealing than FTX US, which is just, it's like playing in a much more regulated, tame casino with just a few games.
Yeah, it's like, to borrow like a sports betting metaphor, it's like, the US based I guess trading companies only allow you to bet like straight up, and then you can do like 7-game parlays if you're trading with FTX or something like that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and you can bet on like what color the Gatorade is going to be that gets dumped on the coach who wins the Super Bowl.
Yeah, all those prop bets. Yeah.
Right, exactly. So now we're here. So this guy who's considered a boy wonder has basically lost everything, and there's $1 billion in people's just like customers' money that's gone. Plus, the Wall Street Journal, I guess, broke the story that he seems to have taken billions of dollars of customers' money and put it into that trading firm that you just talked about, Alameda. So, I mean, is that basically the gist of it?
Yeah. So Alameda made a lot of bad bets. Alameda was supposed to be separate from FTX, even if Sam owned a controlling share of both. But they were supposed to be separate. But it turned out they were nothing but they not only had offices together, and some of them lived together, the employees, there's been a lot made about how they all dated each other, but I don't really think that's that big a deal. Whatever. Or there's been a lot of stuff about how a lot of these people are on stimulants, which is, certainly an issue, but everyone in tech and finance is doing that. Mm-hmm. But more importantly, it's like, what do they do with the money? And so Alameda, which Sam owned, but put someone else in charge of, made all these bad bets, a lot of them in the DeFi ecosystem, decentralized finance. And when these other companies that started going under over the summer, like this Three Arrows Capital hedge fund, the Terra stablecoin, Celsius, FTX had a lot of exposure along the way. Alameda had a lot of exposure along the way. And so basically Alameda had a huge hole. What seems to have happened is Sam signed off on diverting up to $10 billion to Alameda to help cover their hole and really give them more money to gamble with. Now, Sam has admitted, probably not in his best interest, but he's admitted online to some wrongdoing. He has not acknowledged diverting the money, which is probably fraud. There's several types of fraud that might be in play here, but even wiring that money could be bank fraud. And there's also all kinds of questions about their banking, which extends somewhat into the U.S. So, there's a litany of possible crimes here, but the basic thing is, he owned all these companies. One of them lost a whole bunch of money, and he basically stole from his own customers, allegedly, to plug the hole. The thing also with a company like FTX is when people give you real money and buy crypto from you, you're supposed to just keep that real money. Mm-hmm. I think there's some things you can do with it, or perhaps some low risk ways you can manage it, but you're not supposed to go trade on it. And this is a fear actually throughout the industry, especially on the overseas exchanges, that they're gambling with customer money or diverting customer money towards other uses. We've seen this before, but this is probably the biggest scale that we've seen it. And now that it's in bankruptcy court, frankly, it's useful for the public because we're going to learn a lot. There was already a state filing today where you're starting to learn like how shambolic and horribly run this whole place was.
And yeah, and when you say supposed to, there's no regulations or guarantees to that effect, right? Like this is just kind of an honor system essentially that is in their terms of service, but he violated his own terms of service, and yes, it will be fraud, but like, you know, there's, because of, you know, the inherently risky nature of it, there is no guarantees, and this is that chicken's coming home to roost here.
Yeah, very much so. And even in the terms of service, you see some things that really put users, and I'm talking about like regular retail traders. I mean, there are people who lost a lot of money who can afford to. There are also a lot of companies that FTX invested in where they told the companies, hey, you have to put your crypto on our exchange. We'll hold on to it for you. Those companies are out of luck. But there are a lot of everyday people, you know, who have lost money or can't get their money back, and they need that $500 or that $2,000. But there's not a lot you can necessarily do. Pardon me. Because there's so few guardrails with these exchanges, especially the ones based overseas. They make up the rules. A lot of them also, even though the US-based ones, they have clauses in their terms of service that when you give them your crypto, they're not necessarily just managing it for you. You're basically loaning it to them, or they own it. There can be real changes in the legal status of your crypto. Now, that may not sound like a big deal, but what happens when Celsius goes bankrupt or FTX goes bankrupt, you might then be in the back of the line of all the creditors as a regular retail trader because the legal status of your investment has changed. So I think we're going to see some of that too. You know, unfortunately, the moneyed parties and the VCs usually get paid out first. Sam says he wants to make retail investors whole, but I also want to make clear, like, the whole industry is set up like this, and it's set up so that when it falls apart, retail customers are the last to be made whole or to get anything in return. So
it's like they're at the bottom of, say, a pyramid. Like if you wanted to visualize it like that, right? You know,
very much so. Yeah, and in pyramid schemes, 99% of people lose their money, everything.
Yeah,
you know, and crypto, we've seen time and time again. The partisans of the industry can define it however they want, or claim it's for economic empowerment, or chart some utopian future. But what happens in practice is that the money gets funneled from information poor retail investors to VCs, people like Sam, and people at the top who are literally manipulating markets. Like, a lot of other crypto people in the industry hate Sam because they saw him as a market manipulator. He would, quote unquote, hunt their positions. But again, Sam was just a powerful operator among many who did a lot of these things, some of them which we can prove now, some of which I think we'll be able to prove later. So that also adds another wrinkle to this. This is sort of turned into a circular firing squad, or the thieves are all turning on each other. There's a lot of trash talking, a lot of people going after Sam, but that's why I also don't think this is over. More companies are going to fail. More people are going to be angry, more lawsuits. So it's going to be really messy. And frankly, of course, the everyday consumer is going to be hurt most.
Yeah. And I mean, what's so striking to me, and then I do want to get to the Singapore stuff. You have a little bit of time, right? If you wanted to get into that. What's so striking is how quickly this marketplace basically replicated the kind of crap that crashed the economy, right?
Yeah.
Which is just these banks that do not have enough guardrails or funds, and using their own customers' money to make risky bets to benefit themselves. And this was supposed to be a democratizing enterprise, and that's how it was branded. But in reality, it's just so quick to replicate all of the systems that crashed our economy in 2008 because of, again, just it's capitalism, but also lack of regulation,
Very much so. And there's a computer scientist named Nicholas Weaver who's a big crypto critic, and he jokes that crypto is basically speed running like 500 or 1,000 years of financial history in the space of just a few years. And that's what we're seeing, and now we're at the sort of subprime stage. Fortunately, this stuff has been mostly hived off from conventional banking. I mean, there's definitely some exposure. Companies will suffer, people will suffer, but it's kind of contained in a lot of ways. But what you're seeing is what we saw in a lot of ways in 2008. Complex products, complex financial products that no one understands, a lot of leverage, a lot of risk in the overall system that people haven't really recognized. And then this contagion, or that when some of this stuff starts falling apart or unwinding, all the other people who have invested or levered up along the way then see their own positions start crumbling. So I think that's really what you see here, but of course with much less possibility for accountability or restitution. I mean, the sad thing is in 2008, we had so little accountability, and crypto kind of emerged out of that resentment towards Wall Street, a very justifiable one. But as I try to argue with some crypto folks, some of their diagnosis may be right, but the treatment or the alternative they've conceived takes a lot of the aspects of Wall Street and traditional finance and just makes them worse and more dangerous. And I think that's what we're seeing play out right now.
I mean, and that's why you see institutions like FTX take their operations abroad to an extent, right? I mean, not like we have great banking regulations here in the United States, but let's turn to Singapore's exposure here, honestly, because so they have a state-owned kind of investment outfit, and they invested like hundreds of millions of dollars into FTX. What is the fallout from that?
Well, you do have these major funds. Singapore's, which I believe is called Temasek. You have Sequoia Capital, which is a major VC firm, which also published this notoriously over-the-top article about Sam Bankman-Fried and then removed it, but you can still find it online places. They predicted that he was going to be the first trillionaire. So you can see just how these investors went a little nuts in putting, for whatever reason, putting Sam on this pedestal. I find it baffling. I don't know Sam well. I met him once. I've exchanged some messages with him. It's easy for me to say in hindsight, but I didn't see a genius. I thought he struggled to answer some important questions about his business and whether crypto was good for the world, but he had a nice story that people believed. I think what this most affects is sort of the next round of VC and big sovereign wealth fund financing for tech in general. Are we going to be able to do? People in crypto think, hey, this is just a bear market. We're going to come back to another bull run in 2 years. We're just going to spin this thing up again and find more use cases and increase adoption, and everything will be fine. I don't believe that, but they do because they've seen it before. I think this time's a little different. The bubble that's burst was much bigger. A lot of people are getting hurt. And then you have the sovereign wealth funds and the big VCs like the Singapore Fund or the Ontario Teachers Pension Fund, which contributed something like $200 million. And those kinds of big institutional investors, especially under a new regime of high interest rates, are not going to be pouring money back in to just run this back again. They're going to say, like, look what you did to us last time. Now, if for some reason Sam or his cohort has a new story to tell about crypto a year or two from now, maybe that money will come back into the system. But I really doubt it, and I think it might be for the best to kind of let this run its course and then establish some regulatory regime that actually protects people in the future.
But like the for a country like Singapore specifically, like is there even an understanding of how that's going to trickle down or affect people in the country? Just because, will it?
Singapore has a big crypto ecosystem. It was a center of the 2017-2018 ICO boom, and they are an authoritarian state, basically a quote unquote benevolent dictatorship. I don't think that they will suffer kind of scams in their midst. The 3AC Capital guys used to be in Singapore. When their hedge fund went under, they left, and I think it was quite deliberate. So I think what you might see in a place like Singapore is, one, they'll be more careful with their outside investments. I don't think there'll be much economic fallout at home, but you could easily see them cracking down on sort of the domestic crypto industry, trying to regulate it more. Because, for example, when the 3AC guys went down, it's a little embarrassing for a country like that to have those guys just being at the heart of your fintech ecosystem. So I think you'll find other countries like Singapore kind of readjusting their regulatory regimes. FTX was involved all over the world. Binance has footholds all over the Middle East and even in France and parts of Africa. And perhaps, if we're lucky, some of these countries will say, are we giving too much over to these companies? Even too much sovereignty over our financial system? I think that's a real issue that some of these countries might start examining too.
I just have deep concerns for even a country like, of course, a country like El Salvador, right? Mm-hmm. Where they have this, crypto enthusiast as the president, and the fallout from that. I mean, it's gonna be terrifying.
Yeah, they have major problems politically, economically, huge debt. China recently offered to buy all of El Salvador's debt, which is basically like, do you want to become a colony of China? And I think they said no. Bukele, who's ever the showman, says he's now going to buy 1 Bitcoin per day. But, they have a very small GDP there, about $25 billion a year. A quarter of it comes via remittances. Less than 2% of that is through Bitcoin. Like, people just don't like it there. We've been there and talked to folks there. But it's a very troubling situation when you have, like, for example, El Salvador basically announced that they were going to let Bitfinex, which is associated with Tether, a major crypto company, write their digital securities laws. And I think that's what you see happening all over the world, either formally or informally. These companies are rewriting financial rules all over the world, whether they're crypto exchanges or stablecoin companies or just or some influential lobbying groups. It's happening here in some ways. It's happening very obviously in El Salvador and in other places. I mean, even Kazakhstan has all these crypto companies setting up shop there now. And it's not about democratizing the economy. It's about making money and also perhaps undermining a little bit of the local financial sovereignty of that government there.
It's shock doctrine politics in the sense that like, Naomi Klein's book, these are more like unstable systems that are more easily exploited, especially if you're coming in flashy with like a bunch of Bitcoin or crypto wealth generally. So, anyway, I really appreciate your time today, Jacob. Thank you so much for coming on. And when's easy money, cryptocurrency, casino capitalism, and the golden age of fraud coming out? Because I feel like you're going to need 40 addendums by the time that it's published.
It's scheduled for July 2023. We're turning in the draft next month, but we're sort of writing to the headlines in some ways, but also trying to look towards the future and make sure this is a book that'll have a little bit of a shelf life. And we'll be writing other articles and doing other stuff then, so I'm not going away.
All right, awesome. Well, check out Jacob's work. I really appreciate your time today. Thanks so much.
Thanks. It was great.
Yeah. All right, folks, we are going to head into the fun half very shortly. But first, Matt, what's happening on Left Reckoning?
Well, actually, on Sunday for patrons of Left Reckoning, I'll be talking to Jacob again about some of the stuff.
He's the best.
He's great. Exactly. Yeah. I want to talk to him about Andreessen Horowitz and some of the VC guys too a little bit, and maybe some of the political things. But and then on Tuesday night, we had a big show. Ryan Zickraff talking about some submerged labor history in Tennessee. So if you're from Tennessee or thereabouts, you'll be interested in that. And Nick Marcel of the Debt Collective talking about Joe Biden student debt relief stuff. So patreon.com/leftreckoning. We also talk about Trump's announcement and handicap his odds, which I don't know how there's so many different things. I mean, we can talk about this with Binder and Brandon, but I don't know what, like, I see reasons for DeSantis to jump in and I see reasons for him to stay out, and I can't predict which way it's going to go.
I'm trying not to glean too much from Trump's speech, but like, I was so bullish about the base welcoming Trump back and him clearly being the front runner. But there was something about that just I don't know. I'm second guessing myself now a little bit.
It's weird because
there's so much crap like being heaved against him right now.
Like I watched Dave Rubin, and it's funny watching Dave because he's so clearly in the bag for DeSantis, but he knows his audience is for Trump. And it's the thing about Trump is he does have a stink of loser on him, but But also, like, they're so up their own asses if they think DeSantis is going to be stronger in a general election than Trump is. I don't buy that at all. I think Trump is like, still a celebrity and can turn out like independents and stuff like that.
I can't stress this enough. Like, imagine DeSantis in a general election. Like, he's a whiny, like, weird little freak. I'm so sorry to say it like that, but it's just like he's not charismatic. He looks angry all the time. Like he's an asshole to children. Like it's just like I just mean like he has no charisma. He has no likability. You talk about popularity.
That's why he sounds like this.
No, maybe that's a bad impression, but it's what I'm getting at.
I think that Trump is a worse general election candidate with the baggage. It's like we talked about this with Stacey Abrams and with Beto O'Rourke. When you have a narrative written for you, I mean, I don't know if there's anybody that inspires more negative partisanship than Trump.
No, definitely not.
But I mean,
like the positive partisanship he has too.
He's a galvanizer,
right?
In a way
like,
that
and that's
I don't
why
think
it is
DeSantis
hard because you're right. Joe Biden set records based on how unpopular Trump is, but also the Republicans can't say no to popularity because they're a minoritarian party and there's only so much base to go around.
Yes.
And so, it's going to be interesting to see how they try to maneuver this. And
I need more of a toehold before I am making another proclamation. I'm just there's a lot out there right now, but that I want to well, let's let them in. But let me just quickly say that we are having ESVN OT today on youtube.com/ESVN show, where Bradley and I will be giving our picks. Might be a short show today because it's just been a bit of a crazy few weeks, but
just one loss in 3 weeks.
I know, now he's still gained a damn game on me.
Predicted the Vikings beating the Bills with Josh Allen playing.
I don't understand.
Don't bet against the Vikings. A lot of people have done that and won a lot of money. So.
Yeah. I know, but apparently not this year. All right, hey guys, what's up? Brandon and Binder, you there?
Yeah, I'm here. How are you?
Yeah, I'm all right. How about you guys?
I'm doing well. I was muted there for a second, so my apologies.
I mean, not accepted. Just kidding. Well, what's happening over on Doomed and Scam Economy, Binder?
Well, over on Doomed, I spoke with David Dole on Tuesday. We just happened to be streaming at the same time Trump announced, so we talked about Trump 2024 and the midterm elections a little bit. So you can check that out at youtube.com/Matt Binder and also at doomedcast.com. Also, then on Scam Economy, which was released on Sunday, the biggest, most downloaded Scam Economy episode yet. Ed Zitron joined me as we spent a whopping 2 hours breaking down everything going on with FTX and Sam Bankman-Fried. So if you just heard Jacob Silverman and want even more, definitely go check out Scam Economy at scameconomy.com.
Zitron is a funny guy.
He is very funny, yes.
Okay, awesome. Well, yeah, that story just keeps getting better and better. Except I do feel for the actual people who got screwed over. That's the thing that makes it a little less.
Yeah,
sweet.
the effective altruist community. I feel bad for them.
Yeah, right.
Matt Iglesias just burned.
I just, it just
That's my
really
violin.
I will say it really validates my instinct to when people call into the show to explain why we should promote crypto and get people in crypto, that I, every time flat out no.
Oh, yeah.
It's a brick wall every time. I'm really proud of that. Really proud of just never giving in to the pressure of seeming to not like something that is new.
100%. I was feeling the exact same pride, and I think we could encourage all the folks who wanted us to look more seriously at crypto. You can call in and apologize and thank us for our skepticism.
Yes,
I think it's about time everyone look around at the people who they choose to let inform them, and I just say it, slap yourself if it isn't me.
And if you want to feel this feeling of smugness that we feel, which is quite fun, then listen to our show more and then just absorb our opinions.
Yeah, and agree with us more.
I don't feel smug. I feel disappointed.
Duh.
That's how I feel. Disappointed.
Oh, wow. Well, we have
crypto?
We have a
Or
carrot
in the
and
people?
stick approach here.
There's enough disappointment to go around.
With that, if you want to hear more smugness and disappointment in the fun half, you will have to become a member. Join themajorityreport.com for access to everything ad-free and the fun half. And we'll be taking your calls in said fun half in just a moment. 646-257-3920 is the phone number. See you there.
You are in for it.
All right, folks, 646-257-3920. See you in the fun.
Are you ready?
Who sent us
this? Alpha males are back. Boy is back. And the alpha males are back. back.
Just as delicious as you could imagine.
The alpha males are back. Boy, back. And the alpha males are back.
Just want to degrade the white man.
Alpha males are back.
I take all of it in my throat.
Alpha males are back.